Sports 910 on FM at 99. You're hot. HD2.
Jim now joins us to the right to the guest line out here at Casino, Arizona in the CAZ Sports Book. And Tim joins us now. Talk some NBA. Let's start with the new head coach, Mike Budenholzer. And I know you've known Coach for a long time, Tim, but what was your biggest takeaway from the presser last week? What stood out in your mind?
I think it's just, his passion for Arizona basketball as a whole. Obviously, the connection of him being here and growing up here, his dad being a coach. So, it's just like, now, I grew up a New York Knicks fan, but, I'm through and through a Phoenix Suns fan because this is where I live, where I make my home, where, obviously being a part of it, but it would be for me going back to be part of the New York Knicks organization. That's what I grew up with. That's what got me, excited about basketball when I was a kid. And I think the Phoenix Suns and Arizona basketball is what got Mike Budenholzer excited about basketball. And I think that brings a little bit more to him as being the head coach for the Phoenix Suns.
Tim, a lot's been said since the firing of Coach Vogel about what he did or didn't do with the Big Three. What do you think Coach Budenholzer or Coach Bud could do to keep these three in line and have some success?
Well, first of all, there's got to be communication. There's, and I expect it. Before training camp even comes down to it, a couple of dinners with Book, a couple of dinners or lunch with Kevin Durant. Maybe a dinner with all three of them to get everybody on the same page. I think it was, especially when you throw a player in, of their stature, you better be on board with all three of them. So I think that's the most important relationship for Mike Budenholzer and the Phoenix Suns is the communication, the awareness, the honesty between those top three players. And Coach Budenholzer.
I think, Tim, some of the examples of the game in reference to coaching superstars or stars of the team, whether it be in Atlanta or San Antonio or Milwaukee, was he basically said, I'm going to coach them hard. I'm going to communicate with them and coach them hard. It seemed like he had an open door policy to listen to both sides of those stories, but still not be, I guess, intimidated by them, but just coach them up and get them ready to win.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's definitely part of the reason that the Suns hired him. Is that there was a little bit in the media in the Phoenix Suns that maybe that wasn't happening. So that's definitely part of it, and that goes from Mike being around Popovich and Pop coaching Tim, and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, all coaching those guys just as hard as all the young players. So, yeah, I think that's part of the reason that they just focused in on him. As we talked about last week, there wasn't much conversation outside of Mike Budenholzer. There's how many guys out there looking for an NBA job, and they just set their sights on one guy. So I'm guessing that had a big part of it, of his relationship with Pop and those 17 years as an assistant coach under Greg Popovich.
Tim Kempton is our guest on the Right Toyota guest line. All right, Tim, take me then to the games that were played yesterday. I think everybody was shocked at what the Pacers did to the Knicks in New York and how well they shot the ball. But the more interesting game, and rightfully so, was the T-Wolves and the defending NBA champion Nuggets. Did that game surprise you the way that it ended up with the Nuggets having a 20-point lead and then having Minnesota come back and find a way to win?
Well, not really if you watch the game. If you just took those highlights and said Denver had a 20-point lead, but if you watch the game, that stretch where Denver couldn't throw it in the ocean, I think they had 12 straight possessions where they came up empty. But not only that, I didn't think their shot selection was good. I didn't think it was their normal offense. At that time, it seemed to be for those guys was throw the ball to Jokic and hope he gets us a basket, because they were in I don't want to say panic mode, but desperation mode. They felt the pressure of playing on their home court and Minnesota getting back into the game. So it seemed like, kind of in a way that happened with the Suns at times is give the ball to one of your big three and just get out of the way. And in that stretch in particular, it looked like they were trying to lean on Jokic. And, at one point he missed his first 7 threes that were open, and 2 or 3 of them were in that stretch. So, yeah, it just looked like Denver ran out of gas and kind of got away from what they do well to play as a team. Michael Porter Jr. missed a couple of shots. The guys that were stepping up, and that would seem to be that whole series. Obviously, Jokic and Jamal Murray for Denver, and Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns, and even Mike Conley. But it just seemed to me when whoever played better, was it Reggie Jackson and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or was it Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid coming off the bench? And maybe not stat-wise yesterday. I know Naz Reid scored, but the piece of the bench for Minnesota in yesterday's game really stood out for me in that stretch when they got back into the game and took the lead in the early third quarter.
Tim, I felt that a big change in that game also took place, as you well chronicled about the dead stretch that Denver had. But they made a defensive shift, and explain it to everybody. Jamal Murray, they took the ball out of his hands because they started to trap him even before he got to midcourt. So I thought maybe that might have gotten out of sync the offensive sets of Denver. Is that fair?
Where did you see that before? How about the Phoenix Suns series? The Phoenix Suns series doing it to Devin Booker?
Yep.
Yeah. Minnesota's defense was definitely a huge part of that series through and through. Chris Fink and his staff made adjustments throughout. And let's not, you talk about Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. How about Anthony Edwards and his physicality and size and strength against Jamal Murray? In particular, that one play was a high pick and roll right at the half-court line. He stripped them and went in for the dunk, and that was right towards the end of that run, to get them to 2 or 4 points. But yeah, they just did things throughout the series. They were not afraid to try some things, and if they didn't work, we'll try something else. But that in particular, we saw it firsthand with Devin Booker. They take the ball out of the primary ball handler and make other guys make plays. And to me, it just seemed like they wore him down. Michael Malone didn't trust his bench. All it was basically Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Christian Brown. He never went to a big to give Jokic minutes of rest where they can count on a big coming in and doing something.
1 minute.
And it just looked like, Minnesota stayed with their 8-man rotation and wore them down. And one thing that the Suns did very well against Minnesota in the regular season was take advantage of mismatches. When Karl Anthony Towns were on, the smaller guards, take them off the dribble one-on-one. Even Mike Conley, throw them in the low post. And Denver wasn't able to exploit that. And some of that has to do with their positioning of having Nikola Jokic always out at the top of the key at the free throw line where he started his offense. But Minnesota, you have to give them credit. They really looked at their defense and took it up another notch. I think what did Denver have 37 points in the entire second half?
Yes, correct.
Yesterday, and a lot of that has to be given credit to Minnesota, how they made Denver uncomfortable on their offensive end.
Tim, I got about 15 seconds, but I'd love to know who you think is going to come out of the Final Four, and we'll see in the NBA Finals.
Well, I think Boston will win the other side, and I think Minnesota is going to win the whole thing just because of their size and their defense. Boston really depends on that three-point shot, and they've got guys that guard the perimeter in Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and now Anthony Edwards. So I think Minnesota small market team wins the NBA championship this year.
There it is. Tim Kempton. Tim, good stuff. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Thanks. Great talking to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Tim Kempton joining us, brought to you today by Fodco. Beat the heat with a patio misting system from Fodco. As you can head to Fodco.com, and they'll design a perfect misting system for your patio, maybe around the pool. You got a leisure area around the house, so you can stay cool all summer long with their patio mister. So get a free quote today. Go to Fodco.com, or you can call 800-607-6478. That's 800-607-6478. They are in Tempe. They've been serving the Valley for over 35 years. That's Fodco.com, Fogco.com. Well, the football fraternity lost an NFL Hall of Famer over the weekend, and a former Cardinal announced his retirement. 50's next. It's Rocket Minutes with Jimmy B.
Time to win summer.